WDHA's Reconnect with the Rockers. I am here with Andy Biersack. I want to do this in a two-part kind of interview. Okay, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
I'm going to start with the Andy Biersack part. I want to talk first to this guy.
Okay.
All right, I got to talk to
the
this
book
guy.
person. All right.
I love the book. I want to talk. I want you to go back to the kid from Ohio.
Okay.
The Kiss kid. I got my Kiss shirt on too. I was a
Sure.
Kiss kid. We're probably from two different generations,
Yeah,
but I was in.
You can't really see it because of the glare, but there's a nice Gene Simmons with blood.
Yeah, I see Gene back there. I see Gene back there. Don't let him know you're doing that because he'll charge you.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You know, but the Kiss kid from Ohio, who Papa B, your father, was a freaking cool dude.
Yeah.
Because he really cultivated. You kind of dare to be different, and you're, liking these things, and Dad's going, yeah, this is the shit. This is the cool stuff. You can like this. So talk to me about an epiphany moment for you when it went from beyond being a fan, where you said, you know what, this is who I am, and this is what I want to do.
It's sort of funny that a lot of people have like a watershed moment where they go, this is where I think that I could do this, or this is going to be my life. But because I was introduced to, these classic bands, where they're Kiss, Motley Crue, Wasp, AC/DC, Aerosmith, all that stuff, when I was literally 3 years old, it just was completely a part of my existence. The assumption that I made at 3 years old is, this is what I'll do because this is the cool thing that I want to do. So it was a constant thing for me from the time that I was developing my own thoughts, really, that, I talk about it in the book, but I remember asking my mom when I was a little kid, well, why would anyone in the world do any other job? If this is available, why would you do anything else? That's the coolest thing you could ever do. And so that was really the beginning, was just looking at the idea of, the music and the power of the music, and then the aesthetics that came along with that, and getting to be on stage and perform, and just this combination of stuff that seemed like there could be no better future. And then it really wasn't until I was in my early teens that I started to get to see punk rock bands in a much smaller, intimate setting. Whether that's going to clubs or going to Warped Tour and seeing bands playing in front of hundreds of people with no elaborate staging, as opposed to seeing Kiss and Aerosmith and all these, mega bands as a real little kid, where there's a level of, that's otherworldliness. There's, the stage show is so, there's no approachability. There's a gate that's kept there of that's rock stardom, and it's a whole thing that you aspire to, but it's not something you can connect with. Once I started to see these kind of punk bands, there was a level of oh, this is something that I could do now. I could, as a teenager, I could start writing songs, and you don't have to play in front of 20,000 people with bombs exploding. You can just have your passion and your attitude and bring the theatricality. So that was a big thing, because, prior to that, the only experience I had with rock music was it's the bombast. So then seeing bands like AFI and Rancid and Dropkick Murphys and Social Distortion and all those kind of bands when I was a kid, it changed the dynamic for me. And then also punk rock changed my songwriting perspective, because I'm listening to rock and roll all night and party every day, which is fun. But as a teenager, I'm starting to get kind of angry at the world and feeling all this stuff. And I'm going, this isn't really speaking directly to me as a songwriter. This doesn't make me want to write songs. So then I find bands like Alkaline Trio and Sisters of Mercy and Lords of the New Church, and the things that they're saying, I'm going, this is what I want to say. So then it becomes, I want to combine the kind of pageantry of this stuff with the storytelling and specific kind of anger and angst and feelings of this punk rock stuff.
And see, that's what, now we're going to go to the Andy Black part. The guy whose band is going to be playing our WDHA Rock The Rockfest, Black Veil Brides, Prudential Center, April 28th. And I think we need this in music. And we have a few people like this, and we need new generations of it more than anything. And, it's so simple to say we need a new generation of rock stars, but I call them visionaries and executioners, because people who kind of envision what they want to do and who they are, and then actually figure out a way to make it happen. Sure. So you're not a guy who sort of does one thing. You've got, the Amazon series, Paradise City, and you're the voice of Batman, and you do voiceovers, and you've been on doing TV things, and and the solo work and the author, and you're packing a lot of stuff. sort of into, into this journey that you're taking as a creative artist. So I think we need rock stars. We need those people. We love going out to rock shows and hearing great records and stuff. But I think we need those people. And I think that you are one of those people. You're the future of what that is, I think, for rock fans. So was that a realization? Like someone like a Nikki Sixx, he's spoken many times about how he just always wanted to be able to be not just the guy that played the arena shows. He had a
Yeah.
vision for himself and for Motley. And I'm wondering, was that your vision early on, or was it sort of an organic part of your journey?
I think, and first of all, thank you for that incredible explanation or description of me. My head is growing outside of the size of the
No,
Zoom
I
screen.
really truly mean it. Like I mean it. I think we need people that are very personality driven in music, because I think it's
Well,
gotten
I
lost, and it
appreciate that.
sucks that it's gotten lost. I want to go to a show. Sometimes I want to see a rock star on stage. That's what I
Sure.
want to see as somebody who wants to be entertained in the audience. And I see that in you.
I think it just comes down to wanting to make stuff. That's the truth of the matter is it sounds really kind of I guess simple, but if you're given the opportunity, if you're a person who's creative and interested in creating, and you're given the opportunity to do something, that is a fleeting and short-term situation. The reality is there is a limited amount of time that most of us get an opportunity for people to go, you know what? Write a book, do a TV series, do a comic book, do all this stuff. And I always just saw it in my life as if somebody's going to give me the chance to make something, that is the dream above everything else. So, we get done with tours and the joke is kind of I'm already want to make the next record, or I've got this painting that I did that will signify the next chapter, or I've put together, whatever it is. Like I'm just constantly trying to make stuff because I genuinely, whatever it is that I deal with in my life when it comes to anxiety or just things that have upset me since I was a kid, the thing that was my comfort or the solace that I took was in making stuff. And I think that also you mentioned like Nikki or Kiss or any of these things. I had a really good template growing up of people who, whether it was a swing and a miss or a success, did other stuff outside the realm of being a quote unquote rock star. Kiss is making made for TV movies and writing books. Nikki is a photographer and doing photography books and writing best-selling books about his life and all this stuff. The heroes that I had growing up, so many of them were so multi-talented and multi-dimensional that it seemed to me like if I was ever given the chance, looking at someone like a more modern example like Gerard Way from My Chem, that's a very visually oriented band. He goes on to make the comic book series. The comic book series becomes a hit Netflix series, and on and on and on. If somebody gives me a shot at doing something, it's a tremendous gift. And I remember when we made our first major label record, there was a book in the studio that was like a coffee table book, and it had all these pictures of what you might call like 80s hair metal bands, right? But none of them were the top tier bands. It was kind of like, not to be disparaging, but it was bands like Nitro or Winger or these kind of bands that didn't have long lasting careers.
Mm-hmm.
And the conceit of the book was, here's a bunch of quotes from these bands. Isn't it funny that it didn't work out this way, right? So the picture would be of, Kip Winger, and then on the next page it would be a quote from Kip Winger in 1985 saying, "This gravy train's going to last forever. It's never going to end," right? And then you turn the page and it would go on and on. And again, not to be disparaging against those bands, but at 19, 20 years old when I'm reading this, it struck me as even best case scenario, you get to keep doing this. Worst case scenario, there's a very finite window. So you better take advantage of every opportunity you get. And you better, for lack of a better term, instead of half-ass, you better whole-ass everything anybody ever gives you.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you found that book. That book probably meant more to you than it did to anybody else, because man, a light bulb went off. And how valuable was that book?
Yeah, I mean, you get that kind of stuff in your life, and
Yeah.
it's about taking things that you see and taking advantage of. Like, you know what? I realize that, and this is not to be like, oh, we're on the ways out, but I think everybody, what you realize in music, and you know this, a million musicians, one day everybody cares, the next day they don't. So my job is to make stuff that makes me happy, and our job as a band is to make stuff that makes us happy, so that we can give genuine things to the audience. And if eventually the audience goes, you know what, we're done with you, at least we're still making stuff that we love. When you start trying to predict what the trends are going to be or do the thing that's currently the most popular, you sort of lose sight of why you do this. So I think in many ways people view us as a throwback or whatever you want to call it, because the things we're making were directly inspired by and continue to be inspired by the stuff we grew up loving.
Yeah. And it's almost like you have a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, you're a Batman fan, and then all of a sudden you're like this fabulous voice of Batman, and you've done such a great job. I mean, it fits so perfectly. And you know what, too? You know, the records are great, and the band is growing. I mean, your sixth record, Phantom Tomorrow, definitely on my top 21 of 21. I love a great concept record. Like, I love a
Thank
well
you.
done concept record. I love a journey record. I love a record that I can put on the first track, and then it kind of takes me, you know, to the end, to the fall eternal. And then I feel
Yeah.
like I'm sort of like, wow, that was sort of an experience. That was
Oh, I'm glad to
something.
hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. And, look, I grew up on great concept records, whether it was Tommy or 2112 or The
Sure.
Wall, you know, I mean, so I don't want the art of that to get lost either, but I don't like when people do it just for the sake of doing it. So I think you guys
Sure.
do it really well. And I love that storytelling and sort of that journey. Um, Again, was that something that was always, you know, in the back of your mind? Like, the records have to be kind of journey records for people to take?
I don't know if at the start it was. By the time we made our second record, I had this idea of doing this kind of concept record, and I didn't really know how to execute it, and it kind of just took a back seat. The first like three songs on Set the World on Fire, which is our second record, are a concept, and then it's never touched again. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right,
I wasn't ready to kind of broach that yet. When we did our
right.
third record, which is called Wretched and Divine, that was, all of a sudden it became, this is what we're going to do. And I feel like I really discovered the summer that we made that record in 2012, like what I was as a writer, what interested me, how the entry point into how to write a song that made me feel like I was saying something, and how often that would be through a grander story, and how much I enjoyed that process. And we have made that record and then took a few records off from kind of doing the concept. And then when we got into this, it was just, I got struck with an idea, and it started with drawings and character descriptions and this and that. And it just was like, this is kind of the perfect time. It's been a long time since we've kind of waded into these waters. It feels new and exciting. The whole band bought into the concept. And it was also like, now in retrospect, we started the record in January of 2020, but
Wow.
the the pandemic situation being what it was, by the time we got to February, March, it elongated the process. Suddenly we had to stop for a while. And then all of a sudden, this kind of, parallel universe that we're building for the record, a world we could kind of live in, so to speak, became this really fun experience, when the world that we were really living in was so crazy and you didn't know what you were doing from one day to the next. So then finally, when we were able to get back in the studio, didn't matter what was happening on the news or anything else. You could go in and live in this world and play in this universe we were making. And musically, it was a lot of fun and a great experience.
Yeah. And I think you can hear that. I feel that. I definitely feel that. I feel like it's sort of a shake everything else away kind of record, and take the trip and enjoy. And you guys, during pandemic times too, really, I think, got into the groove of stripping the songs down and doing the acoustic thing. And you guys are doing our acoustic VIP. That's right. So the VIP tickets are available via ticketmaster.com. So that's going to be awesome. Fans are super excited about that. But I love that. I always think with acoustic stuff, I think a great song is a great song is a great song. And I think when you
Sure.
strip it down, whether it sounds like the song stripped down or it takes on a whole new life, I think good songs really hold up. So what was it like, when I listened to like the first Black Veil Brides record, like I can't imagine any of those songs acoustic. And yet you guys had a really, really amazing way of just kind of taking it down. So what was that like for you guys? And did it surprise you that all of a sudden you did it so well and it worked out so well with every tune that you did?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that it was like you. I think that we had a lot of trepidation about, like, how do you transpose some of these songs and turn them into acoustic songs. But I remember Halloween of 1995, I was 4 years old, and I rushed home from trick-or-treating so that I could watch the Kiss Unplugged concert on
I was
MTV.
there, dude. I was at that. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Well, I was watching at home, and I remember soon thereafter they did like a home VHS release where they also had like a kind of a bonus documentary part of it. I'd watch it every day when I was a kid, and one of the parts of it is Paul Stanley says if a song can't be stripped down to its basics and still sound good, it's probably not a very good song. And that always kind of stuck in the back of my head, as many other Kiss lessons have. And I always felt like, well, this is a true test of whether these songs hold up. And if there's no screaming and breakdowns and guitar solos, is it still a good song? And there were so many of the songs that we did where at first we go, how do we do this? And then we're sitting in a rehearsal space and we worked through so many of them, and we found that we loved the acoustic versions. And then ultimately, we did a bunch of the streams. We did a career spanning live stream where we did, as you said, all the different songs. And then unfortunately, our drummer Cece wound up getting COVID on this last tour, and he had to miss 10 or 11 days. And because of that, we figured, well, we want to still do some of these shows. We're out on the road. He's got to get better. And we wound up we had this set ready of, an hour plus material of all acoustic. So we wound up doing, I think we did Denver and a few other cities where we just did acoustic, and it went really well. Obviously it's not the same as having Cece back there, but in the situation that we were in, it was really nice to have this new kind of, for lack of a better term, you reach in your bag of tricks and pull something out that we never would have had before.
Absolutely. And it's brave. You're out there with your, basically with your pants down and your swinger hanging out. There's no, it's playing acoustically is very, very different, especially if you're a band that has a big stage show and you're not really known for your acoustic stuff. So I thought it was brave.
It's super bizarre in these larger venues. We go out and there's thousands of people there, and we just go sit on stools. Like it felt like extremely anticlimactic, but thankfully fans got behind it and enjoyed it. It was one of those things where you come out and there's almost like there's a little bit of an apology, like, hey, I know you're expecting a very big rock show, but
just
here we
hang
are
on, though, you're gonna like it. Right. Now you guys were masterful, and look, you guys got hit by the COVID thing, as I was just talking to Amy Lee not long ago. And, as like 80% of touring bands have now, I think so many bands have just had to deal with this reality that we're in and had, to stop and then pick up again and start. And thankfully people have been healthy and people have been vaccinated and had mild symptoms. So that's always, such a great thing, but it's been such challenging times for people to be out on the road, so my hat goes off to you. And hopefully by the time April rolls around and we rock the Rockfest, things will be, tempered a little bit. Also want to let people know, if you're looking to do a little binge watching, I think the Amazon Prime series is just so good. And again, it's one of those great disappearing into it, just getting some entertainment while using your brain too, and still having that cool rock sensibility,
Absolutely.
And you're so commanding, like on camera. Like, when was the first time that you were on camera? And when was the first time, because you obviously feel very comfortable, you're very comfortable acting and it's a very natural thing for you. When did you know that, having a camera in your face, which isn't easy, wasn't going to suck for you as a person?
I think we kind of joke in my family that I just assumed my whole life that everybody wanted to watch me do stuff, which is, by the way, a pretty insufferable situation. Every family get together or holiday or anything had to be interrupted by, I have now written an original show that you all have to watch, I'd pull out the Phantom of the Opera mask and make everyone listen to me sing the entire Phantom of the Opera original cast recording, or
Grandma has been a fan for Grandma. In the book was at all the shows and everything. Grandma's was loving it.
It's one of those things where I think I was very encouraged and nurtured in my family to be expressive and to entertain. I talk about it in the book. There's a very really great performing arts school in Cincinnati where I grew up, but unfortunately we lived outside of the city, and to go there it costs tuition. Well, I certainly didn't. Our family, I come from lower middle class suburban kind of Ohio family. It's a very expensive thing. We weren't able to do it, and my aunt, again, to speak to kind of the family support, my aunt said, well, I'll help with the tuition if you want to audition to get in there. And told my parents, and my parents were really excited. And I couldn't tell you, jumping out of the roof of the house to be able to do that. So I go and I thought that I would be a vocal music major, and you have to pick a minor, and I thought, well, I'm dramatic, I'll do drama. And I sang, and I got into both departments, and I very quickly found out that there's no lead singer of the choir. And so I was unceremoniously asked to leave the vocal music department pretty early on. But inversely, the head of the drama department, David Roth, who I cite as one of like the biggest inspirations in my life in terms of entertainment, uh, second or third day at the school comes up to me and goes, "Hey, you have any acting experience?" And I lied, of course. It's, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." And he goes, "Oh, good, because we're looking, the lead in our show this year dropped out, so we're looking to recast the lead. So come by and audition." And I didn't even have a monologue. I didn't know what to do, so I read the lyrics to a Misfits song dramatically because I knew none of them would know it. So I like did a dramatic reading of a Misfits song, and I got
Brilliant.
cast in the show. And then I just got the bug. And every show during the whole time I was at that school, I was always trying to go for the lead, and I was just always really interested in it. And then they would send talent scouts from LA to the Midwest to these schools to try to find like your squeaky clean Midwestern kids. Because in like 2003, 2004, all of like the CW shows and all that stuff were just made up of like what they called Midwest casual, which I never knew
Right,
what that was.
right, right.
But me being like the weird goth kid, they were like, well, this isn't really what we were looking for, but we'll take a flyer on you. And I came out here to LA, and I got to do some auditioning, and I booked a couple commercials and a few little things here and there. And I thought, wow, this is great. But, my passion was always music. So, I was only out here for, I think the trip was like a month and a half. And obviously I had to go home, couldn't stay out here. And when I got back home, I said, well, now I know that that's where I need to go because I saw that there's a music scene out there. But now I really need to be serious about, getting my chops as a performer and getting clubs booked and playing shows. And so at 16, I was like, I've got to really get into music. So it was always a thing that was hanging around in my life, but it was never at the forefront. And thankfully, Ash Albitson, wrote the film with me in mind for the lead, and then obviously the series as a spinoff.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. You're sort of doing the trifecta. I mean, I love it. We got the book, we have the series, you have a great new record with the Phantom Tomorrow. And catching up with you, there's like so much. Like we could do like a 3 hour, but we have a small window of interview time. And I'm so excited to have you on our WDHA Rock the Rockfest bill and see the band live in the big arena with Godsmack and of course Lilith Czar. So
Absolutely.
have you guys now? I was with your fabulous wife a couple months ago, right at
Yeah.
the beginning of her interviews, and we had such a great time. Oh my gosh! I think we chatted before the interview. We hung out afterwards, like girl talk. Like she is.
Sure.
You must be so proud of her. She's so charismatic.
Absolutely.
I was just talking with Amy Lee about her because, of course, she was out on tour.
Yeah.
And her presence, and she talked to me about her whole evolution. And I said, living in the house with you two must be a very interesting. She was telling me about the dog and how the dog is obsessed with you. The
Oh,
dog
yeah.
hears the car, and the dog knows when you're coming from blocks away, so
Yeah, we've got three pets, and they all have distinctively picked their favorites. It's sort of
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, but it must be such an interesting house to live in with you guys, with all that creativity just flowing all the time. Or are you guys basically pajama people and we just don't know about it?
We are absolutely pajama people, but we're pajama people who are constantly working on things. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like we don't really have a social life because we're both so driven to make things. So, she's got her office and room is on the other side of the hall here, and I'm in this room, and we're either together enjoying our time together watching TV or movies, and then breaking and then going to our separate, bat caves and plotting our dominance of the future. So, yeah, I mean, it's extremely fortunate that, and we always talk about this, to spend your life with somebody who really innately understands you and understands what it is that you do. I think that the fact that we have that for each other has been, I mean, it's probably the most important part, at least, I know for me, it's the most important part of the last 10 years for me has been the motivation that comes from spending your life with somebody who really gets it and is encouraging and understands what it takes, and also just to have a sounding board, to have somebody who pushes you to, not overtly, but just in the art that they create. You'd be hard pressed. I always say you'd be hard pressed. I hear her sing in this house every day to not, as for me as a singer, go, you know what? I want to improve my chops because that's fucking amazing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So,
Her voice is incredible, just absolutely incredible and so unique. And I love in the book
yes.
too, you refer to her so many times as the love of my life, but then you also go on to say, but we're normal people. You
Yeah.
know, we mix it up and then we forget all about it and we just sort of move on with the day, you know, and I loved that part of the book because there was no sort of sugarcoating anything. You're like, you know, we love each other, we respect each other, we're artists together, you know, we're a couple together, you know, but we can mix it up just like anybody else that lives together can. And I would imagine, especially during pandemic times when you're
Well, I
together
mean,
all
you've
the
heard of
time.
the LSD, right? The lead singer's disease. We always joke that like what a situation that the two of us lead singers are together all the time. I mean, it's more honestly, we over the years we just kind of laugh about. We both know our idiosyncrasies and personality stuff, and it's just fun to be able to. You see so much of yourself in somebody else, and there's so much mirroring in terms of like our tenacity and our like, we're both the kids that really wanted to be the line leaders at school. You know what I mean? Like be first in line, do everything the first way. And so I also think that, and I talk about it all the time, it breeds a healthy level of both of us being like, oh, we're going to do this and I'm going to do this. And it's never like a competition, but more so like just pushing each other. We always want to make sure that we are consciously pushing each other to make great stuff and make cool things happen. And because of that, for me, it's incredible. Throughout her whole career, I've always been exceptionally proud. But the fact that this whole Lilith Czar thing and the record, and like, I remember the first time I heard King or the first time I heard Anarchy, just going like, I'm so envious. Like that's the best song I've ever heard. Like I want that song, and that's as for to have that with your partner, I think it's an incredible thing.
And I was just thinking about it. I've worked at WDHA for a lot of years. I've programmed for a lot of years. I don't think I've had a husband and a wife that are like some of our most requested new artists at the same time. Like I'm thinking about it. I think this is actually a first for the radio station, which is incredibly cool. And I love that. I just love that. It's awesome, awesome, awesome. And you both are going to be on our bill, which is so cool.
We're coming down. We're coming for you in New
Coming
Jersey.
to Jersey, baby. Rock the Rockfest,
Love it.
April 28th, Ticketmaster.com, WDHAFM.com, Black Veil Brides, of course, Godsmack, 3 Days Grace, and Lilith Czar. And thank you so much, Andy. It was such a pleasure catching up with you, man. It's like I feel like I've known you forever. It was such a great hang.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. This was a lot of fun, and we look forward to seeing you guys at the show.
DHA's Reconnect with Rockers is powered by Karis Lock Company, your full-service locksmith, and Dover Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram on Route 46 in Rockaway.